As Parliament, we think that these reforms have not been activated sufficiently, and we are looking at this financial year to see that these reforms are actually, working. I want to urge the sector working groups to fully embrace zero-based budgeting for the financial year 2026-2027, ensuring that its application is evident in the budget estimates table by April 30th, 2026. This approach will ensure that every expenditure is justified, inefficiencies are eliminated, and resources are allocated to high-priority programs. Parliament, through a resolution of Budget and Appropriations Committee, has directed the Intergovernmental Technical Relations Committee to unbundle all devolved functions still being implemented by national government. This directive aims to curb unnecessary duplication of functions between the national and county governments, particularly in the health, agriculture, water, and other sectors. Honorable CS, we have been undergoing painful mediation exercise between the National Assembly and the Senate over Divisional Revenue Bill. And Honorable CS, we know that there's no really big room for us to continue to transfer more resources to the counties. So the only option left for us is to ensure that all those functions that are currently being handled by national government and should be devolved, they need to be done quickly so that we avoid this painful fighting over transfer of more resources. We expect Divisional Revenue Bill 2026 to incorporate provisions to guarantee that counties are allocated devolved resources that are presently held by the national government in a manner that is appropriate. I urge the National Treasury and sector working groups to ensure that national government resources are prudently allocated, avoiding overlaps with county functions. This alignment will ensure that service delivery, optimize resource use, and strengthen our devolved system of governance as envisioned in the Constitution. Addressing pending bills, Honorable CS, remains a critical focus as these have constrained liquidity for businesses, particularly small and medium enterprises. The pending Bill Verification Committee is auditing bills accumulated from the 2005 to 2022, and clearing this will inject liquidity into the SME sector, which supports over 60,000 enterprises and millions of jobs. The sector working groups must give priority and allocate resources to expedite this process, fostering economic growth and building trust in our public finance system. Honorable CS, public participation is the heartbeat of our budget process. I call upon the sector working groups to engage actively with citizens, civil society, and the private sector during the upcoming public sector hearings. These platforms will ensure that the budget for financial year 2026-2027 reflects the priorities of all Kenyans. The adoption of zero-based budgeting this year further underscores our commitment to scrutinizing our expenditure, eliminating inefficiencies, and maximizing value for money. Honorable CS, you remember that for the last 2 financial years, there has been conflict between Parliament and the budget as tabled by National Treasury. I tend to think that if we enhance public participation better, then going forward we are not going to see conflict where the budget presented in the National Assembly is altered, or changed by members of Parliament. I think this is something that we are committed to ensuring that we have a budget that is properly aligned and that there's no conflict during the budget making process. Thank you. I have 1 minute. In closing, I would like to give gratitude to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, Principal Secretaries, and all stakeholders for their support.
Is the Honorable Samuel Latandi speaking at KICC, and this is as the National Treasury launches the 2026-2027 budget process. We'll be going back when the Cabinet Secretary to National Treasury, the Honorable John Mbadi, will be giving his remarks. We'll get back to our conversation, and remember, Chan Iko KBC, and we are doing a full review of the quarterfinal phase with John Agri Otieno. And John, yes, let's get straight to, first of all, the match between Kenya and, Madagascar. Yeah. That was played on Friday evening. A lot of anticipation, but your takeouts from that game first.
Well, I think generally that just showed our level of football, where it is. That was like a honest display of where we are. I know there's the issue of a goal that was disallowed.
All right.
Okay.
So let me interrupt this because we've got Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi speaking at the moment. So let's move over to the KICC, where the National Treasury is having the launch of the 2026-2027 budget process.
Then I will give what may sound as off-the-cuff remarks, but generally to give a summary of the performance of our economy and generally where we need to go to, or what we are trying to do to make sure that our economy is sound. So the Principal Secretary is present here today, including my three Principal Secretaries, Chris Kipto, Boniface Makoha, and of course Odede. The other Principal Secretaries present and other counting officers, Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee. I don't see representation from Council of Governors. I don't know whether there is any in the room. Commission on Revenue Allocation was also supposed to be represented. I am not sure whether there is representation from that commission. I know there are development partners. I salute you. The private sector representatives, the civil society representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's with great honor that I stand before you today to officially launch the sector working groups, which is a pivotal step in our national budget and planning process for the fiscal year 2026-2027 and the medium term. This initiative is integral to our broader strategic framework, which is aimed at ensuring economic sustainability of our economic growth, social development, and effective public service delivery. I recently issued guidelines on the preparation of the financial year 2026-2027 and the medium-term budget in accordance with Article 220 of our Constitution and Section 35E and Section 36 of the Public Finance Management Act. It is further to these guidelines that we are here today to launch the 2026-27 and medium-term budget preparation process. So, ladies and gentlemen, the financial year 2026-27 and medium-term budget, which we are launching today, is being prepared within the context of a global economy that is facing significant challenges due to the following factors. One, rising trade barriers across the globe, financial tightening, and policy uncertainties which threaten growth prospects. Further, we are also faced with persistent risks which include trade policy escalations, cautious consumer and business behavior, intensification of geopolitical tensions, and sustained high inflation, potentially exceeding expectations. However, reversing trade restrictions early could stimulate growth and mitigate inflationary pressures. I am mentioning this because you have seen the unpredictability of the issues of tariffs between the two leading economies, which basically dictates where our economic growth would go. So on the global scene, as my peers has mentioned, the growth is expected to moderate at 3% in 2025 from 3.3%, before slightly improving to 3.1% in 2026. In Sub-Saharan Africa, again, that has been spoken to by my peers. I don't want to repeat. However, the growth outlook is supported by factors such as increased private consumption, ongoing public investment in infrastructure, and a gradual revival of the services sector, particularly tourism, in our economy. However, several risks could impede this growth trajectory, which include spillovers from global trade disruptions, declining external demand, volatility in commodity prices driven by geopolitical tensions, and limited fiscal capacity in many countries, which may lead to tighter financing conditions. Our economy is expected to recover in 2025. I think my peers spoke to last year's economic growth, which was lower at 4.7%. In the first quarter of this year, we have seen a rebound at 4.9%. We expect better performance later, although we had a challenge with the demonstrations and riots that took place end of June and beginning of July. But we expect a better performance in the last quarters of the year. And so our focus is to have a 5.3% economic growth, which is supported by the strong agricultural and manufacturing sector. Our manufacturing sector has shown very clear signs of recovery, together even with mining sector, which underperformed last year, mining and minerals. So we are also expecting a robust service industry, macroeconomic stability, ongoing public investment, and high business confidence. And the public investment is mostly in the construction sector and the road sector as well. However, Kenya's economic outlook still faces both external and domestic risks. Further, extreme weather may negatively impact agriculture, infrastructure, and food security. So the government is monitoring these risks closely and will therefore take necessary measures to safeguard macroeconomic stability. Our recent fiscal experiences have been instructive. One, the withdrawal of the 2024 Finance Bill last year compelled us to forego additional revenue measures, prompting implementation of austerity measures that prioritize essential social sectors such as education, health, and social protection. In fact, last year was the most, I think, challenging year in the recent past, apart from the COVID years. Why? Because apart from losing revenue-raising measures which the government had factored in their plan, there were a lot of expenditure pressures that came from the health sector, where we adopted a new system of funding our healthcare program from October last year. And again, we also had a lot of challenges in the education sector. The collective bargaining agreements were, their implementation phase just began last year. So there were issues with COPET, NAT. We also had issues with the lecturer strikes. There were a lot of challenges, but I'm happy that we were able to surmount those challenges. So these measures, though challenging, reinforce the importance of financial judiciousness and resource economization in our governance framework. I therefore direct all MDS to ensure that the fiscal prudence and resource optimization we instituted are sustained and embedded in our culture of public service. So in the upcoming budget will be anchored on in the fourth medium-term plan and aligned with the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. The strategic focus remains on fostering economic growth through the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, emphasizing on inclusive development. So in this regard, our focus will still remain the 5 pillars: agricultural transformation, MSMEs, housing and settlement, healthcare, and digital infrastructure, which includes creative economy investments. For our fiscal framework, we are structuring our fiscal framework around key targets, which include GDP of 5.3%, inflation maintained at the midpoint with plus or minus 2.5%. We are also anchoring our framework on the projection that we will realize 17.2% of GDP in terms of revenue collection. The other projection is that we will be able to maintain our expenditure below 22.2%, down from 22.7%. The other assumption is that our fiscal deficit will be reduced. Remember, in 2023-24, the fiscal deficit was 4.7. But then in 2024-25, the year that ended, that rose to 5.8. It may be looked at as a negative, but I will tell you that if you consider other factors, we had 4.7%, but with a carryover of 218 billion, which is about 1.3% of GDP. If you add, that is the carryover of what we were supposed to have supported or released exchequer to, which includes county governments, 31 billion, 26 billion that was supposed to go to pensions, and there was also CDF, 13 billion, and MDA's unfunded exchequer request of over 158 billion. If you add all that, that was 1.3% of GDP. If you added that to 4.7, you are at 6% of GDP. So in real terms, 2023-24, we should have closed by a budget deficit of 6% of GDP. I am happy to announce that the 2024-25, we closed the year with no carryovers. That the counties, we released all the exchequer requests to counties, including the arrears for 23-24. That we also released the exchequer requests for CDF, including the carryover of 13 billion. And we managed to settle all the pension requests that were processed. And we transferred exchequer requests to MDAs almost in total. So then it means that our performance in 2024-25, in my view, in terms of budget deficit, it was better than 2023-24. So in recent financial planning reforms, innovative budgeting approaches have been adopted by the government to enhance fiscal management and strategic allocation of resources. One of these is the zero-based budgeting, which this financial year, we should not have any excuse why we cannot adopt zero-based budgeting. We piloted it in the last financial year. Now this financial year, the 2026-27, we must now actualize full implementation of zero-based budgeting. 2025-26, there were excuses. Now 26-27, there will be no excuses. So MDAs should note that each of the program will compete for funding on an equal basis, forcing elimination of inefficiencies, duplications, and misallocation of resources. So this time there will be competition for resources. You must justify the resources that you are requesting from your sector working groups. In recognition that many challenges transcend sector boundaries, we will promote intersectoral collaboration to develop integrated solutions. We cannot afford to have different arms of government working in silos on the same problem. MDAs are therefore required to identify and eliminate overlapping functions and propose joint programs that deliver greater impact at a lower cost. So we are not going to entertain any more overlapping functions between or among MDAs. You must identify them and eliminate them for a seamless and smooth implementation of our program. We are running one government, we are not running many governments. So we must avoid working in silos. Something that I need to emphasize on is public participation. It remains a cornerstone of our fiscal policy. We are committed to fostering a participatory approach, engaging stakeholders at all levels, and ensuring their inputs influence budget decisions. Treasury has already been leading from the front, and we are even going to do better in 2026-27 in terms of engaging Kenyans in budget process and budget implementation. And therefore, MDAs, you have a responsibility to engage Kenyans. We must avoid the culture of thinking that we know what is good for Kenyans. We must allow Kenyans to participate in the budget-making process to decide where their resources should be allocated to. And so, all your requests will be subjected to that test, public participation. If you are not conducting public participation, I'm sorry, you may not get the resources that you are requesting from the National Treasury. It is essential to proactively identify and involve all key stakeholders, document their contributions, and clearly illustrate how their feedback has influenced the fiscal budget proposal. So all the proposals that you will be making, you have a responsibility to demonstrate how the feedback that you've got from Kenyans is influencing that budget proposal. This approach will ensure transparency. It will also enforce inclusivity and accountability, thereby strengthening the integrity of the decision-making process and fostering trust among all parties involved. I strongly encourage all accounting officers and sector working groups to view this process not merely as a procedural requirement, but as a fundamental aspect of sound governance. So before I conclude, I wanted to mention a few things. Then I will come back to make my conclusion. Listening to the PS, Chris Kipto, and PS Makoha, you will realize that we still have a long way to go to realize economic stability in this country. But I must also say that we have made some very good progress, that if we work together as a country, then we will realize economic stability in this country in the shortest time that we never imagined. We only need first to love our country and believe in our country. Sometimes when I listen to people make their contributions, I listen a lot also to TV talk shows. I also read newspaper and I see people's opinions. And I respect their opinions. But I think we also need to acknowledge and accept that a lot has happened even in the past 1 year. Let me just mention a few things. You'll remember that in 2022, we had inflation rate at an unimaginable percentages, 9.6%. Yesterday, I saw someone write that inflation has gone down because we rebased our economy. I remember when we rebased our economy last, was several years back. And we haven't rebased our economy since that time. So these are likes for likes. So 9.6 has come down to 4.1. To me, clearly, that also reflects a reduction in cost of living. Because Chris gave you figures and analysis, and we have them. The cost of the basic commodities in 2023 and 2025. But even if you go back to 2022, it was even worse. So coming from 2022, end of 2022 to 2023, most of the basic commodities coming to 2025 their prices have gone down. From the basic, which is the maize flour, fuel, sugar, we have the data. Cost of living is not determined in political rallies. Cost of living will not be determined in churches. Cost of living is determined by real data collected, collated, and disseminated. And the data is there. If the cost of a 2-kilogram packet of maize flour was 218 in 2022, you cannot change it to 105. And if it is today 176 or 184, you cannot change it to 100. So these are real data. That is the cost of living. Cost of living is about cost of basic commodities. And the statistics are there. And I don't think there is anyone who can dispute that. And if you want to know that that is the reality, early 2023, when we really felt that the cost of basic commodities could not be afforded by ordinary people, we had sufurias on our heads. Today, how many people are in the streets with the sufurias on their heads? I don't see them. It means now the cost of what was being cooked by sufuria has gone down. So that is what I'm saying in a nutshell. There is another point that I want to mention. Allow me to just open the page where it is. The Kenya's economic outlook has been facing challenges mostly as a result of debt payment and debt servicing cost. That's a fact. You have been informed that now we are consuming about 48% of our ordinary revenue is going into servicing our debts in terms of interests. That is not sustainable. And we have recognized that as a risk area. However, I want to tell you that the government has also done a lot to make sure that we reduce the debt risks that was facing this country, or has been facing this country. Early last year, there was panic in our economy. The panic was that we were likely to default on paying our debt, meeting our debt obligation. There was a $2 billion Eurobond coming to maturity by June, and was supposed to be a bullet payment without any plan at all to pay it. And therefore there was a panic early in the year. The shilling lost ground, almost 165 to the dollar. But because of what the government did then, and what we have continued to do in terms of managing our liability and the debts, first, the shilling appreciated now to around 129.2 to the dollar, and has stayed around 128 to 130 for over 1 year. I hear some people say, is this real? The reality is, it is real. If you want to know that it is real, look at the forex reserves. You see, the shilling would lose ground when there is a threat to the reserves that we have in the country. And our reserves are at 5.2 months of import cover, up from 3.8 a year ago, and up from 2.3 months of import cover in 2022, when this administration is no longer new. But when this administration came into office, we had forex reserve to import cover of less than 3 months, which is the minimum requirement. Today, we have the 5.2. And that clearly demonstrates. Another reason why you are seeing us doing relatively well is because our exports. There is something that has happened in our exports, especially the coffee and horticulture. We are exporting more. Exports grew at 7.7%. That growth has narrowed the current account balance from 2.6% of GDP in 2022 to 1.3% now. That is halving the deficit, reducing the deficit by half. What has that done to us? Plus the diaspora remittances, and plus the fact that we were able early this year to foresee and project that there will be a Eurobond falling due for payment in 2027 May, that we must deal with it early so that we don't create another panic in the economy. We did that early. We have eliminated the risk. And we were very timely. In fact, most countries are wondering. When I meet with my colleagues, they are saying, how did you foresee this? The moment we went into the market and managed our 2027 liability, the markets have closed. If we delayed even for a month, we wouldn't have succeeded. So there is something positive, something progressive that is happening, which cannot be done in the streets. It is done by clear and strategic thinking. And that is why S&P last Friday upgraded us. These are not people who just upgrade you because they like you. These are people who have considered all the factors, and they give reasons why they have upgraded Kenya from B- to B plain, if you want, or if you like, with a positive outlook. Why did they do that? They have cited, first, improved current account balance, two, which is informed by exports and diaspora remittances, and three, they have said clearly and categorically that the government's decision early this year to liability manage the Eurobond that was falling due in 2027 has given Kenya a positive outlook. And can't you see that as a positive for this government? That is positive. And I want to repeat, that is something you don't do in political rallies. That is something you can never do in church. That is something that you do by pragmatically thinking and progressive mind to forecast and project what is likely to create a risk in the economy. Let me move quickly. So I have mentioned, now look at the lending rates, and I will tie the lending rates to the government borrowing rates. 1 year ago, the 91-day Treasury bill was trading at 16%. For government to access funds by issuance of 91-day Treasury bill, we had to offer 16% as interest. Last Thursday, it was at exactly 8%. 50% of what was there 1 year ago. And even the 182-day Treasury bill is at 8.07% last Thursday. This Thursday, it may even come down below 8%. Now, that has done something. One, it has also helped in reducing the lending rates to the private sector. In November 2024, the average rate was 17.2. July this year, it is at 15.3. And this, you can see, has effect in the private sector, where the credit uptake had declined to negative 2.9%. It has now gone to 3.3%, and we expect it to rise. Those are the economic fundamentals that would help the economy grow. It is not about fights in the streets. It's not about fights in funerals. It is about what you do to help the economy pick up. I think I'm just remaining with one or two things to mention, and I finish. We have, because of the tightening fiscal space, we have also decided to look at other innovative ways of financing our budget and financing infrastructure. One of them is the PPP programs. I want MDS to embrace PPP. Before you ask us for extra budgetary allocation, exhaust the possibilities of raising funds through PPP, especially commercially viable projects. We now have Rironi Mau Summit in the pipeline, progressing well. I am sure it will be concluded soon. That will be a major infrastructure project in this country. The other one that I would mention, and my PS visited it recently, that is Galana Kulalu, is in progress under PPP. We have a number under the energy sector, and I want to encourage all MDAs, including even county governments, come up with projects that can be funded through PPP programs. We are also, I will not talk much about securitization and privatization. Privatization is not selling state assets. It is releasing some shares and retaining some to allow for private sector participation. Because private sector participation in commercially viable state-owned enterprises would have immense benefits, one of which is to improve efficiency and allow for more access to capital and reduces bureaucracy. I will tell you, just the other day, I had an issue with Kenya Pipeline, which we want to privatize. And the issue was this, that Kenya Pipeline has had a system that they are using for procurement. It is an electronic system. But because we have given instruction to all government ministries, departments, and agencies, and state corporations, they have now to abandon that system and get into e-procurement. However, this is a company that is out there that we want to sell shares on. And once we sell the shares, they will go back to another system, which is not a government system. But they cannot do that because they need approval. So they have to come all the way to the Treasury for approval. That is the kind of bureaucracy that we don't need. And you know, right now, they need to procure what is going to help them to service the supplies to Uganda. The more they delay in making that decision, we are likely to lose that market. So you need a faster decision-making in such a company. You cannot realize it with the government bureaucracies. We need to face it. So you need some of these state-owned enterprises which are commercially viable. We need to release some of the shares to the private sector. We will even be deepening the capital market. Nairobi Securities Exchange will perform better with more IPOs, with more companies being released. So let us not resist, let us not be complacent. Just because this is the way we have been doing things, we want to be very comfortable. Because KBC is making some 4 billion every year. Yet it can make even 15 billion. So we want to retain our 4 billion, 3 billion, which is 100%. What if it makes 15 billion and we have only 40% shareholding? That will be 6 billion to the exchequer in terms of dividend. So that is my request, that we as a country embrace new thinking, fresh thinking. Lastly, we are employing a number of reforms. And these reforms are meant to cut on expenditure, because there is wastage in government. I can see the Auditor General is here. I had not recognized her. Nancy is here. Her books are full of audit queries around expenditure. And we know what we are doing when it comes to procurement. You know what you people do in your offices. You know how your procurement people pluck papers from documents that are submitted by suppliers. And then in evaluation, you tell them you are not compliant. You are not tax compliant. Information you can even get from KRA yourself. So someone has quoted 1 billion less, but is denied opportunity to do business with government because you want another person to win that tender. And so you will manipulate the documents. You will pluck those papers. That is what we are trying to cure with e-procurement. And this e-procurement, you people must implement it. This resistance I'm seeing, you will just have to stop it. Oh, it is not working. Gee, what? I am not going to buy that narrative. I know many people are frustrating this system. We are not going to allow it. You better embrace the system and get going. Otherwise, you will not procure. Hiyo ni ukweli. We will save close to 200 billion if we implement this system. Already, we have registered suppliers of 7,286 by 25th of August. We are doing weekly training to suppliers every Thursday on webinars to these suppliers. Let me give you the statistics. We were targeting to train 840 for state departments. We have trained 804. That is 95% achievement. So if kama umebaki hapo nje, remember you are just in the 5%. County executive and assemblies was 715. We have trained 700, 98%. Only 15 have not been trained. State corporations was 1,600. We have trained 844. This one is low at 53%. And state corporations webinar, we were to train 6,400. We have trained 3,297, 51%. Those who have not been trained, please get to the training. As we speak, what we are doing right now is pulling budget from IFMIS to EGP system. Head of procurement to create all organization users. We are going to embark on preparation and approval of the annual procurement and disposal plans. That will be done. So we must integrate budget and requisitions. Integration with IFMIS is complete. So if this has not happened, start it. Commitment of POs and payments. You should start that system. Tomorrow, I'm going to chair a meeting where the service provider will be present. We are going to deal with all those teething problems, all those challenges. Any new system must face challenges. So don't use that as an excuse to kill this initiative. You will not kill it. So you better adopt. Align yourself. Accounting officers, I hope you are listening to me. Align yourself with e-procurement. There will be no excuses. It's going to help this country, and I'm not going to let this country down by dropping the ball on this one. Even on integrating the payroll system, counties are still resisting. County executives. I want to tell them and my team, you better listen. This thing of saying that we are only going to start with MDAs and then county assemblies as we wait for executives, county executives to be ready. When will they be ready? There is no justification. They must also be onboarded. We must integrate the payroll system. This idea of ghost workers, we must find a way of eliminating ghost workers. You go to counties, there are parallel payroll systems. Some manual, some casual, what? To the extent the salaries that are paid in counties are over 50%. Some counties pay 55% of their revenue of what they get, both from the national government and on-source revenue. They pay 55% to staff. They have employed people who should not even be in the payroll. Directors of everything. Border. Director. Unakuta kila mtu ako na file kubwa kubwa. We have so many stuff, a lot of wastage. We must bring that to an end. And then you recover people's salary and you don't even remit to NSSF, to pension funds, and then you are telling us you are not ready. Why are you not ready? So my team at the Treasury, and this is an instruction, county executives must be onboarded the soonest possible. This month we are paying MDAs and county assemblies using integrated payroll system. I hope there is no more excuse. My PS is looking at me. This is instruction, daktari. Hii ni instruction. Uangalie hiyo imefanyika. And then, if we are giving county executives, it should not be more than 1 month. Hii maneno ya 2026, ikome. There is no justification. We can onboard county executive also. We are doing very well with the pension. Let us make sure we conclude that. All these reforms, if we can carry them, there will be enough money for you people who are always crowding in my office, making calls to me that you need budget adjustment. Now you need budget adjustment and you don't want us to free money which is being stolen. If you want us to help you, help us. We free this money which people are stealing to you to implement government programs for the benefit of the people of Kenya. I don't think that is a big ask. That's a very small ask from you. So, I think I'm done. I am done. I have made myself very clear. In closing, I want to emphasize that the success of the sector working groups depends on our collective effort, as I mentioned, dedication and shared vision for a prosperous Kenya. I urge all participants to approach this task with professionalism, integrity, and a commitment to excellence. I know my peers umesimama, but let me tell you, I want to just plead with you. Help National Treasury. We are going through a lot of stress. My friend there at the end, PS for special programs, will come to me when there are problems across the country. I can't let him down. Because when there is an emergency, you must respond to emergency. Interior, there will be a problem somewhere. God forbid, they will rush to come to me. We are not giving enough money for capitation. We have not been doing it for 7 years, and I have no apologies to make. We have sat with the PSS for education and the CS for education to look at that gap under the instruction of the President. And we have seen the gap. We want to get more resources to capitation so that our children can go to school. We want to give more money to Higher Education Loans Board. And by the way, tomorrow we are releasing the money. I hope, Jane, that is correct. Ashuka. Yes, PS, that is correct. We are giving the money, the 17 billion plus 5.9, which is for examination. That is 23 billion. And we should also give money, look for money for help to give this week so that our children go to school. So tomorrow, money for capitation will go to the Ministry of Education. But it is not enough. So I want you to help National Treasury by making more resources available. We educate our children. We provide enough money for health. Primary health care has 13.1 billion, but we need 19.5. So we still lack 6.4, which we must put there because Kenyans must be treated when they fall sick. So instead of us manipulating procurement to make more money for us and we earn some decent salary, it may not be too decent, but it is reasonable, and from taxpayers' money, let us make money available to Kenyans to get essential services. And this government is bold enough. I am ending there. This government is I don't think there is any government which will be as bold as this government. A government which in 1 year decides to implement universal health cover, which defeated all the governments from independence. And then you criticize and you say 1 term because of trying to fix a problem that has been with us since independence. Then we have also implemented education reforms the same year. We have employed 76,000 teachers 3 years. And we are employing another 24,000 this year. In 4 years, we are going to employ 100,000, a target which had been planned for 5 years. This government is bold to start even housing program. Very bold government. So if you are working for this government, help this bold government to achieve its objective. Otherwise, I want to end there because if I go beyond that, you know where we'll end. Thank you very much, and I want to thank you for coming in big numbers. I never imagined that we will have this kind of turnout. Thank you very much. This clearly demonstrates that you are interested in moving this program forward, this budget process forward, and you have demonstrated that you are keen in managing your various units as accounting officers. May God bless you. Asanteni sana.